Oh, well, isn't this fantastic? What a wonderful evening. Let's see here. So, I decided that I'm going to try and shoot this across LinkedIn Live this afternoon or this evening. And, uh, and wouldn't you know that everything just decides to stop working as soon as I wanted to do that? So, I'm not even sure that this is working. However, I might as well take a look at it and see if I can figure out how to make this work. No time like the present, eh? First of all, I'd like to apologize on behalf of my voice. It seems that my voice is no longer cooperating with me this evening, but that's okay. Let's see what we got here. Oh, here we go. Look at this. It's showing me live. Well, it looks like I'm streaming. It looks like we're live over here. That's cool, man. I will totally take that. A couple, 2, 3 technical difficulties going on this week, but nothing that's insurmountable. As you can tell, the camera behind me has not been color corrected, so it really looks like I'm sitting on Mars, or at least somewhere close to. Anyway, either way, anyhow, whatever and whatnot. I do appreciate your patience. This is Monday, October 16th, and I am Drew Lentz, the Wireless Nerd, and I'm here to talk about Waves. So, Waves is the weekly podcast I cranked up a couple weeks ago, and what I do is I talk about what's new, what's now, what's next when it comes to the tech industry, specifically with what's going on with wireless. I try and keep it short and sweet, about 12 to 15 minutes, graze across the headlines and see what's happening. Again, I apologize on behalf of my voice, but that's okay. Hopefully it comes across loud and clear. Now, that being said, let's just dig right in. There's a couple things that are going on. Obviously, my laptop just died, so I'm using ye old trusty iPhone to go through some of my show notes here. So I apologize if I'm squinting. But if you're listening to the audio version of this, then you don't really care if I'm squinting or not. But that's cool too. A couple things to go over in the now segment. Amazon confirms its plan to launch satellite internet services in India. I thought that was pretty cool. I know that there's a lot going on with low Earth orbiting satellites. You know, the States has been, there's lots of stuff happening at Telesat, lots of stuff happening with SpaceX and the programs that we have here. But Amazon launching the Kuiper project in India is going to be pretty cool. It's a sign of things to come, universal broadband, if you will. Everyone should have access, and everyone will have access. Now it's a matter of price point. So we'll see where the price point goes with this. We'll see how quickly competition steps up. I didn't see anything about pricing going on. It just talks about how the Department of Telecommunications and the industry has been working with them. Amazon has shared long-term plan to expand IT services on the subcontinent and Project Kuiper. So it's pretty good. I mean, if you look at the trend, there's, definitely it's great to see Amazon jump into the ring here. Starlink has been, such an incredible project for the people that have gotten the ability to use it. And Kuiper's launching 3,236 satellites into lower Earth orbit. So that'll be pretty cool. 100 megabit to 1 gigabit. Plans to offer the service next year. So we'll see where that goes, and we'll see what implications that has on the U.S. or North American satellite market. In other news on the 5G side, this is kind of interesting. Last week, Fuse, the Telecom Infra Project conference that happens in Madrid. This is the second year that it's been labeled Fuse. I was there last year. I got to go there as part of the team, and there was some great stuff happening. Fuse this year a little bit different, smaller footprint for open Wi-Fi. I guess they didn't have the same persuasive argument from someone internally pushing hard to make sure that the whole place was lit up with open Wi-Fi. So that's okay. The booth was a little bit smaller. There was no wall of fame like we had last year, but that's okay. The big news, obviously, at TIP and at Fuse has to deal with Open RAN and the O-RAN network and the way that they're doing things there. But what I found fascinating about that is I was trying to keep up with the news and what's happening with O-RAN, because O-RAN basically disaggregates the ability to have your e-nodes and your radio network and everything in between and the systems that make them function, being able to pick and choose what fits together instead of just being locked into a single vendor ecosystem. And so the announcements I found a little interesting, not counterintuitive, but just interesting. It says a lot of pressure has been put on the likes of Nokia and Ericsson to support Open RAN, and what they're finding is that even though there's groups that support Open RAN or O-RAN, that they're still keeping it into themselves. So it might be only Ericsson or only Nokia, but yeah, they support it, but they're only using those products. And so I thought that was fascinating to read about how there's a lot of love for Ericsson coming in and really going hot and heavy on O-RAN. In other related news, Ericsson has said its network sales were down by 60% in North America year over year. So that's interesting. It's they're moving towards Open RAN, and they're getting all this pressure, and they're being touted over at Fuse in Madrid as being this, the deal. But then you look at their sales in North America, and they're showing that year over year 60% down. That's a tough one for Ericsson, man. Ericsson's a big company. I don't know how they're going to do with that. But other events that are happening or that just recently happened, WISPAPalooza, the Wireless Internet Service Provider Association, big annual party, WISPAPalooza. Also, they've got WISP America that happens in another part of the year, but WISPAPalooza is the big gathering where all of the wireless internet service provider nerds get together in October, and it's such a cool thing for the people that do that. For the people that are involved in wireless ISPs. The big news coming out of there was to start applying for your BEAD funding right now, the broadband access funding by the federal government in the United States. Just please start filling out your applications for it. But keep in mind a couple of key points that Steve Karan, one of my old buddies from back in the WISPA days, the legal counsel for WISPA, make sure to remind you that grants require 25% letter of credit from a bank that needs a Vice B minus score, and not all banks meet that. So whatever you get, your letter of credit has to be from a very specific bank, and also 25% of your project costs have to come in cash as collateral for the entire project. So there's been a lot of heat about that, and they're trying to change that, because if you think about the people that can put up 25% of a $10 million, $40 million project, a lot of small local wireless ISPs might not have access to that fund. So, hopefully some of that will change where smaller ISPs will be able to get a piece of that BEAD funding. 55% of the component costs are also supposed to go to American suppliers. The Made in America component is very strong with this funding. So keep that in mind when applying for your BEAD funding. But the good and incredible news coming out of WISPAPalooza, and again on the wireless side, I love to keep tabs on what's happening in the point-to-multipoint space, 5G, 4G, LTE, WiMAX, whatever it is. WISPA has the members of WISPA are the people that roll their sleeves up and do some crazy stuff. And if you've never been a part of some of those groups on Facebook, those Facebook groups are live and direct with people who are coming up with all kinds of ways to solve problems creatively. Instead of just running a fiber to someone's house, you can expect them to come up with a number of different things to solve connectivity problems. And that being said, every year they do their annual awards. And this year there's some award winners. The Operator of the Year, Unwired Broadband, a well-known name in the wireless ISP space. But the one that I really wanted to focus on, Distributor of the Year, went to ISP Supplies. Great group of people. I've worked with them for a long time. ISP Supplies, congratulations on that win. The one that I really like, though, is the Product of the Year and the Manufacturer of the Year went to Tirana Wireless. And Tirana came on the scene, I wanted to say about 15 years old, but their CEO said they're about 12 years old. But they really started to come on the scene about 5 years ago and make a difference in what they're able to do, delivering hundreds of megabits and now gigabits worth of access and unlicensed spectrum by the way that they do interference nulling, the way that they do their antenna patterns. And it is a fascinating product. They just announced some support for 6 gigahertz. I posted a link to their video on my LinkedIn page because listening to their CEO talk about their product is one of the coolest sales pitches I've heard in a long time, because he's not selling it at all. He's going over accomplishments and milestones and getting really nerdy with some of the stuff that he talks about. And it was fascinating to watch. So if you get a chance, jump on my LinkedIn and go take a look at that video and see what Tirana is all about, if that's what you're into. Very cool product. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but it really pays off, especially when you learn about what they're doing. Lots of wireless internet service providers in the United States and around the globe have started to use them. And one of the things that he did is something that I love, and that's where they take data from existing networks and they plot it and they show it on the screen. And they're able to say, this is what we did, this is what we're doing, here's live snapshots of networks, this is where we're going. So big congrats to Tirana, kicking butt and opening up in 6 gig. Lots of really cool things that they're doing in that space. The point-to-multipoint spaces has been an incredible thing to work with for the number of years I was involved. And to see someone coming up and doing something so creative is a lot of fun. Along with that, some interesting notes. MikroTik has figured out in working with Mr. Dennis, a longtime friend of the wireless internet service provider industry. Dennis and MikroTik got together to figure out how to get below the $500 mark when it comes to passing a household for fiber to the home. And what they did is they kitted together a bunch of MikroTik stuff and ended up down at the $204 mark. So look up what's going on there. Reach out to the team at MikroTik if you have questions. It's fascinating to see that they're trying to figure out cheaper, maybe not cheaper, but more cost-effective ways, maybe cheaper ways to get fiber to the home for some of this stuff. So very, very cool to see that happening. That's what's happening right now. That's as of last week. Those are things that's going on. Now I'd like to dig into what's new. Wi-Fi 7 access points are hitting the market early, as usual. A couple early adopters out there. Couple name brands have dropped their APs, so keep an eye out for who's pushing that early adopter stuff. But one of the ones that caught my eye was Zycell. They just introduced, I think like today or yesterday, 22 gigabit per second of peak data rate with adaptive antennas and anti-noise shielding. What stands out in particular is Zycell's smart antenna technology, which is a clever way of shaping antenna radiation patterns dynamically to optimize connectivity for each client. This sounds like Beamflex. Someone had to say it. I'm going to say it. Sounds like Beamflex. Anyway, I'm curious to see what they do. I'm curious to see what the outcome of this is. So an early Wi-Fi 7 AP that's out there, the WBE660S, it incorporates 3 4x4 smart antennas supporting all 2, 4, 5 gig, and 6 gig bands. Along the same lines of Wispapalooza and the wireless internet service providers, and also digging into 7 gig, a little company who's been making some serious waves, Calix, is having their user group this month, and they introduced their Smart MDU component. Now, I don't know too much about it, but I know enough to know that when Calix drops something like this, it's worth paying attention to. They've got their smart city stuff that they've been working on, their smart building stuff, and the Smart MDU, from the looks of it, reminds me of products that we used to have when I was over at Comcast. And it gives property managers the ability to turn on and off Wi-Fi just as easy as, setting a parameter. It supposedly works with, a user network. So each, individual apartment can have their own network within the Wi-Fi infrastructure that's always on and always available. It's got integrations for IoT and smart door locks and stuff like that. Calix has come such a long way, and the people that use it love it. They love it. They love it. They love it. So kudos to Calix for moving into this market, trying to figure out how to bridge Wi-Fi 7 along with PON and all the other optical stuff. Definitely something to dig into. Calix is spelled Calix if you've never used them before. So go ahead and check them out. That's what's happening right now. Also, text to space. SpaceX and T-Mobile started talking about how they were going to do texting back and forth to satellites. And they're saying that that's going to be delivered and available in 2024 with voice and data starting in 2025. There's actually even a little spot on the SpaceX website that's talking about that. So that's pretty interesting. Interesting to see, talking to space. All of these things are fantastic. And, what's coming next, I think, is, I talked a little bit about Wi-Fi 8 last week. And I think Wi-Fi 8's got some really cool stuff. I'm really looking forward to mass deployment and mass adoption of Wi-Fi 7. It's going to be really neat to see how that shakes out, especially with MLO and link optimization, link aggregation. I think that's just going to change so many things. And if you look at what's happening in the outdoor side with what Tron is doing, where they're taking the best of 6 gig, 5 gig, and then figuring out how within AFC to merge some of the channels in AFC so that they might use some 6 gig or some CBRS, and then like a combination between 3 gig and 5 gig and 6 gig and 2 gig. I mean, it's really cool. It's really, using the spectrum. And the CEO of Tarana talked about how, there's only 2 things that you can do to get more throughput. And that's either get more spectrum, which we're not going to, or optimize the spectrum that you already have. And I think seeing Wi-Fi 7 moving into Wi-Fi 8, there's a lot of optimizations that are happening there that are really going to drive, those higher speeds that everybody's looking for when it comes to Wi-Fi. What's happening next? Well, in about 12 hours, I jump on a plane. I'm headed out to WLPC in Prague. So stay paying attention to all of the wireless world. There's going to be some fantastic presentations at WLPC coming out of Europe. It happens once a year, and then some of those presentations might get carried over. Something similar get carried over into WLPC coming up in February in Phoenix. There's also WLPC happening in November. But the show that I'm really looking forward to, I'm already gearing up for it. Registration is set. If you're going to be there, let me know, is CES 2024. I love going to CES. I take time off of work to just go nerd out over there. It's just such a good show. And seeing the devices and the end user equipment and the cars and all the other stuff that are going to be presented at CES is really what's going to help drive this industry to do things like Wi-Fi 7, Wi-Fi 8, so on and so forth. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what's happening. I know last year and the year before, there's some really cool healthcare devices that leverage, 20 gigahertz, 60 gigahertz, that, you leverage the same spectrum that we use for communications in a totally different way. Dallas Cowboys won. What? Against the Chargers? That just popped up on my phone. Who knew? Let's go get them, Cowboys. So anyway, back to CES. If you're going to be out there, please stop by and my page or find me. Come look me up. I'll be out there. Let's see if this thing broadcasted on LinkedIn after all. I think it did, but I think it's over. I think I'm over my allotted time on LinkedIn. Well, that was a good teaser, I guess. Oh no, still says I'm live. Anyway. That's it for me. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the episode here, but thanks for listening. Our next episodes begin our formal sponsorship episodes. This episode and the last 3 episodes have been brought to you by the good fine folks at Wi-Fi Stand, WiFiStand.com. For all of your temporary Wi-Fi mounting needs, call Drew at Wi-Fi Stand. That's DREW at WiFiStand.com. You drop me an email. Tell me that you heard it on the podcast, and I don't know, I'll give you like a discount or something, like $1. I'll give you $1 off. One for every episode. How about that? I'll give you $4 off if you call or if you send an email into info@Wi-Fi Stand within the next week. It's $4. That's all I got. Anyhow, but yeah, I do appreciate the support for the podcast. I love the people that support me. This is so fantastic. Gary Vee always talks about it's not how many people listen, it's the quality of the people that listen. And let me tell you, you all are some of the finest quality people out there in radio land or Instagram land or LinkedIn land or whatever we're doing today. Anyhow, I hope you have a wonderful week. I will be out at WLPC. Stop by and say hi. Give me that high five. I look forward to talking to you next week. And as I mentioned, starting next week, it's sponsored by the good fine folks at NetAlly and their new Cyberscope, which they were kind enough to ship me one. So I'm going to be having some fun in some airports the next couple of days. Anyway, I hope you have a great week. Thanks for tuning in. Please get everyone that you can to subscribe to my YouTube page, youtube.com/wirelessnerd, because when I hit 1,000 followers, my wife said she would take me to Mexico for a vacation, and I would really like to go to Mexico. So please feel free to share this. We also have some really cool content coming up. I've got some really cool videos I think everyone's going to get a kick out of. I love Mr. Beast, so a little influenced by Beastie. You might see some of that coming up soon. Anyway, thanks for listening. I've got to get up to go press the off button over there, so that's what I'm going to do now. Have a wonderful week. Thanks for listening. See ya.